Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kivana webinar series. My name is Justin Banner. I'm one of the founders here at Kivana, along with my other three fabulous partners. And today we are lucky enough to be joined by Dr. Layman as we talk today about the Kivana products. So excited for you to tune in with us today and talk about how we can energize our metabolism to change our body for life. That is something that so many people struggle with. And again, we're so lucky to be joined by Dr. Donald K. Layman, who really spent his life researching human metabolism. He spent 30 years at the University of Illinois researching human metabolism, how to stabilize blood sugar, how to obtain the ideal body shape. That is something everybody wants. And so again, thanks for tuning in today. We have been around for 7 years, Kivana now. And I just want to give you a really high-level overview of why we're in existence and what we're all about. If you can believe it, we are 7 years old, and we are here to make your life in style, help you live life in style. And what we mean by that is to bring products to you that will help you achieve optimal health so that you can live life in style. We can have anything we want, but nothing matters if we don't have our health. And so that is what Kivana is focused on, is helping people obtain and maintain optimal health. In fact, we did so in a very unique way. You have a lot of companies that will just find magical fruits, magical berries, magical pills, and bring them to market as a cure-all. Well, we're all smart enough to know that that strategy doesn't work. And Kivana, 7 years ago, had a new approach. And our approach was to go directly to universities and scientists where they had decades of research on a specific health condition, on a specific product, on a specific nutrient set. And we had conversation after conversation after conversation with these scientists who had published research for these health conditions, for these nutrients, whatever their expertise is. And we form partnerships with them when we find something spectacular. You can see here that this slide says that we are the leader in the global channel of natural product breakthroughs. We're all about natural product breakthroughs. What do we mean by a breakthrough? We mean something that is not found on the market. We mean something that you can't find at Whole Foods or the grocery store. We mean something that Costco doesn't carry. We mean something that you can't find on Amazon. A breakthrough, by definition, is not a commodity. It's a major advancement in thinking. It advances the way people treat and really obtain optimal health. And so when we talk about breakthroughs, we talk about category-leading products, cutting-edge science, things that just aren't commodities, things that obtain for you better results than anything else you could possibly find. And so we are really, really excited to bring to you our natural product breakthroughs. Again, we've been at this for 7 years. We have a handful of these that we found meet our expectations for the level of science, the level of benefits that you can achieve, and most importantly, how different they are in the market. And so I want to talk about the core system for about 1 minute. This is the very, very first system that we launched. It's a combination of Chinese herbs and a probiotic. This tag team combination has done wonders for people. In the Chinese herbs, we have powerful anti-inflammatories to eliminate those squeaky, creaky joints you get as you get older, to make sure that inflammation, your body has a proper inflammation response. We also have the probiotic for optimal gut and digestive health. And as you age, you probably have noticed that your gut and digestive system doesn't always work as it should. That probiotic is a spectacular product for optimizing digestive function. That boosts immune system, helps your energy levels as you get nutrients absorbed better, eliminates waste like it should. So again, this is our foundational product line. It's called the Core System. Our second system we brought to market was Prime. This is a nitric oxide activator. The only thing that means is that it helps blood flow through your body. And as you know, everything that your body does is based on blood flow. All nutrients are delivered through the blood. And so as we open up blood vessels that become hard and closed and sometimes clogged with age, those can open back up and let blood flow through there a lot easier, a lot faster. You'll see blood pressure become normal. A lot of great things happen. Brain function activates, energy levels go up. Athletes love it for the endurance factor of their their muscles don't fatigue as quickly. So that's prime. We recently launched and introduced to the market Shock. This is an all-natural 2-ounce energy shot, natural flavors, natural colors. There's no artificial anything in it. Has natural caffeine for a nice lift, a good boost throughout the day. And one of the ingredients I'm most excited about is something called huperzine, which makes your mental alertness go off the charts. It awakens your mind. It helps your memory. Has really, really, really great studies. So watch for a webinar coming out on Shock from Dr. Layman and myself to get into the nitty gritty of how this product works. But this is our all natural energy shot. And then of course, what we're going to talk about today, the metabolic system, the world's only system that transforms your body by working at the base level, the root level, the cause level, if you will. And that is your metabolism. And there's nobody more qualified in the world to talk about metabolism than our own Chief Science Officer, Dr. Donald K. Layman, who we're so excited to have on the call. This is the second part in the metabolic series. Last week, we talked about what's happening in the global obesity epidemic and what we can do to fix it. Today, we're going to boil it down into the action items that you can do to actually energize, correct your metabolism. And so Dr. Layman, he has 30 years of his own research. This isn't borrowed research, not Google Science. It's not something we found and read in a book. This is Dr. Layman, the primary researcher who conducted these experiments, had some incredible breakthrough findings, and partnered with Kivana to bring the metabolic system to market. And we've done just that. We have helped so many people. And you can see on his title slide here that we're just some of the pictures of people that we have been able to change their metabolism. Stephen Missy Deer, Alice Lee, these are people that have lost well over 100 pounds, and they did it the right way, in a way that allows them to maintain it for the rest of their life, and they've done so for a number of years already. And so Dr. Layman, I know everybody's excited to get to you today, so I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Justin, and it's a pleasure to be back. As Justin said, in this session, what we're going to do is move a little bit more into kind of the nitty-gritty of beginning to structure your diet. And even more important, we're going to get into how you look at creating your daily meals. And that's really the key to how we optimize metabolism of muscle for weight loss and just really healthy aging. So we're going to start thinking about it in a meal sense. I mean, I think one of the things we'd all like to think is that weight loss was just a magic pill, but we really need to get into the science of it. And when you start looking at the science, weight loss, weight management is really about what we call energy balance. It's how much energy you take in, food, what kinds of foods you eat, and how you burn those calories, the energy expenditure. And it's that balance that really is the key issue. And so when we look at weight loss, it's clearly always about calories. And, the cartoon there is, these Weight Watcher pills aren't, it's not WW, it's MM for M&Ms. Little things really do make a difference in terms of weight balance. And one of the things we're going to look at is what calories really make a difference. And certainly all calories aren't the same. So sort of the first step is, if it's really energy, calorie sorts of things, and it seems like you've got two choices. You can starve away the calories, or you can exercise like crazy and try and burn away the calories. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like either of those work. I mean, I think probably a lot of you out there listening to the webinar have tried maybe 4 or 5 different diets, and you'll lose 10 pounds, maybe 20 pounds, and you get on some fad diet, or you take up a huge amount of exercise, and 6 weeks later, 2 months later, you're sick of it. You stop doing it. You lose compliance, and 6 months later, you've gained it back, and a year later, you're heavier than you were before. So you go the after and before after and after, and it's a vicious cycle, and it's just not working. One of the reasons it's not working is that all diets aren't equal. Even though you might lose 10 pounds or 20 pounds in 5 or 6 or 10 different diets, they're actually not all equal. And when you take the next step down, you start looking, what we find out is all calories aren't equal and all weight loss isn't equal. Those are two really critical points. All weight loss is not equal. You get on the bathroom scale and it tells you lost 10 pounds. Well, if those 10 pounds all came from lean active tissue like muscle, you're less healthy. What we want all the weight loss to do is come from body fat. Likewise, all calories aren't equal. You can cut calories, but it makes a big difference whether it's coming from carbohydrates or fat or protein. And one of the things we discovered was basically how to protect these lean tissues and how important protein is to this process. So one of the sort of overall important things that makes metabolic unique is that there is a truly metabolic advantage to protein. And if you use protein in the right way, what we can do is develop a sensible, sustainable diet that's based on the science we developed in my laboratory. And we can finally get away from that yo-yo type of dieting, which frankly, you're worse off from having done it. You'd be better off never to lose weight in the first place if you're not going to keep it off. So as Justin mentioned, this is science that's directly from my laboratory. University of Illinois, we've done the basic research. We have a obesity weight loss clinic. We have over 100 scientific publications on the topic. And what we really discovered was the importance of muscle in this weight loss process. Muscle is what really helps you burn the calories. And the discovery that we made is that we can basically balance protein, and again, getting the right kinds of proteins, and balance proteins with carbohydrate at each meal. And if we do it correctly, we can stimulate the muscle to begin to sort of rebuild and repair itself, which keeps us healthy for healthy aging, but it also begins to stimulate metabolism, and it just sort of ignites your body's ability to burn fat. So we learned to teach it as a sort of plate look, and what I want to do today is really go into how we put those meals together. Before I start doing that, one of the things I'd like to do is just a little bit of background history, because I think everybody's, we all listen to the news media, we see magazines, and there's so much misinformation out there. So I just want to go over a little background to help you kind of position what we're doing with what some of the things you may have heard. So some of the old beliefs and frankly failed guidelines put out by our federal government, the USDA, NIH, beginning in the late 60s, but certainly into the 70s, we had what I would call the era of fear of fat. All of the guidelines said that to stay healthy, to lose weight, to avoid heart disease, whatever, you had to avoid fat, particularly saturated fat and cholesterol. And so what we got was this food guide pyramid that sort of showed that, minimize the things at the top, use them sparingly, and eat lots of the grain products at the bottom, bread, cereals, rice, pasta. And so what it basically was saying was limiting all these really what are high quality foods that are protein based. Limit those protein foods and eat lots of grains. And so that was basically the message, and it was all really predicated on this fear of fat, belief that cholesterol was bad for you. So what actually happened? These are some data from the USDA, and the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, tracks food consumption by Americans. So this is right off their website, and I've given you the reference there. So from mid-1960s, 65 or so, out through 2000, this is really what happened in the US. So we have this food guide pyramid telling Americans how to eat, and basically they did it. Americans dropped their egg consumption by 30%. They lowered the milk consumption by 31%, and they reduced consumption of red meats by 21%. We lowered daily cholesterol intake from almost 700 milligrams per day down to below 300. We did exactly what the so-called health guides were telling us to do. Likewise, we increased our grains. Again, exactly what we were being told to do. Along with that, we shifted from animal fats to vegetable oils, and we increased our vegetable consumption. But unfortunately, those vegetables were primarily French fries and potato chips. But again, we did what the pyramid was saying. So how did it work out? One of the problems we did is we shifted away from protein and we shifted toward more carbohydrates. Benefits? What we found was we got no benefit at all. In 2000, 2010, we have exactly the same rates of heart disease and cancer incidence that we had way back in the 60s. We had no benefit at all. We are better at treating them. Fewer people die from a heart attack. We're better at treating cancer, but there are just as many people who get it. Unfortunately, beyond that, not only did we not get the benefits promised, but this food guide pyramid seemed to create epidemics in obesity, diabetes, macular degeneration, and Alzheimer's. And we got totally new categories of diseases we had to invent new names for, such as metabolic syndrome and sarcopenia, which is muscle wasting as we get older. We're becoming more frail. So not only did we not get the benefits people were promising, we actually got huge problems that are coming in, like obesity and diabetes. So let's step back and start re-looking at this. One of the things we've now learned from the science in the last 10 to 15 years is that there's real risks of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates can be good foods, but what we've learned is that too many of them are huge health risks. They increase your insulin, and when you do that, you increase fat storage. This meal-to-meal bouncing around of insulin and blood sugar makes you more hungry. You're more prone to snacking. It increases inflammation, which leads to heart disease and cancer. And it produces all sorts of abnormal blood lipids, which we call dyslipidemia, a dysregulation of blood lipid profiles. And so these high carbohydrate intakes have become a really big problem. And, you know, sort of, you listen to the media right now, and, you know, the pendulum's now swung that all carbohydrates are bad. One of the things we want people to understand is it's really about moderation. It's not that all carbs are bad. It's simply that most Americans are eating 3 to 4 times the amount of carbohydrates they need. We need about 100 grams of carbohydrate per day, and most Americans are eating well over 300. So again, as we think about it, it's moderation. And we're going to be targeting sort of around 100 grams per day as we think about weight loss. The other half of that equation, we're trying to balance protein and our carbohydrates. And the advantage of optimizing protein is that we begin to stimulate this muscle metabolism. We initiate what we call muscle repair and remodeling. We're rebuilding the protein structures. And that is a really expensive process. It costs a lot of energy. You know, the money, the currency of the muscle is energy. And it takes a lot to rebuild these structures. And so we're basically igniting metabolism. We're learning to burn more calories. And specifically, we burn body fat. And even more specifically, we get that body fat from around the abdominal area, the waistline, which is what's at high risk for diabetes and heart disease and things like that. So what we're doing is a very positive approach to diet. If you think about the old thinking, it's about fat and it's about what you should avoid in your diet. What we're doing is creating a positive look at diet. Protein. Center your diet around protein and how much do we need. It's a positive approach to creating a meal concept. And when we do this, it becomes a sustainable lifestyle and a sustainable weight loss. One of the things I think is important, and Justin kind of alluded to this is research that we developed. It's not research that we're borrowing somewhere else. It's not that we went to the internet and Googled it up. I basically published it, and I just put a publication there from last year. This is an interesting author list. This is sort of a summary of a lot of these things. And if you just go through this author list, these are sort of the leading people, some of the leading people in the field in the world. So I wrote the paper. Second is Tracy Anthony. She was actually one of the researchers in my laboratory. She's now at Rutgers. Blake Rasmussen is head of nutrition at the University of Texas. Sean Adams is head of nutrition at the Arkansas School of Medicine. Chris Lynch is now director of nutrition research at NIH, the National Institute of Health in Washington. Grant Brinksworth is in Australia, head of nutrition in Melbourne. And Teresa Davis is head of nutrition at Baylor and actually the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Nutrition. So these are the who's who of weight loss, and they basically are endorsing the program we put together. I think one of the things that you have to come to grips with as you look at the food guide pyramid is this myth about adults eat too much protein. We have this sort of concept out there that the only people who really need protein are children, people who are growing. And what we have found in the last 10 to 15 years is that as we get older, as we age, our efficiency of protein use goes down. And so it's true that young growing children need protein, and we kind of go through early life in our 20s where our needs are maybe lower, but as we get into 30s and 40s, it begins to go back up. And so what we now know is that as we get older, protein efficiency goes down, and we have to pay attention to the protein in our diet. We now know that over 65% eat less than is recommended of protein. It's not that we eat more, 65% eat less than recommended, and 30% of adult women over the age of 55 are actually protein deficient. It's one of the major causes of bone deterioration and muscle loss as we get older. So let's look at that metabolic approach to weight loss and how do we optimize muscle metabolism. And let's think about some of the specifics. As we look at this metabolic advantage, there are some very specific steps. And the first one we always want to keep in mind is that we need about 30 grams of protein per meal to keep muscle healthy. This amount of protein stimulates metabolism, stimulates this repair process, and begins the burning process. And the amount of protein varies a little, and we can get by with less protein, the better the protein. So we talk about ideal proteins, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a minute. But sort of the kind of proteins we select makes a difference. Third item that we want to keep in mind is that we're eating too many carbohydrates, particularly cereal grains and starchy, sugary carbohydrates. And that is particularly true at breakfast. So we're going to take a big focus on breakfast as we start talking about putting this together. So now we have this protein carbohydrates. We're looking for a balance of those two at every meal. And then we want to always be selecting healthy plant foods. There's a lot of discussion about having a plant-based diet. And I think that is a very reasonable thing to do. But one of the things to keep in mind is Americans already get 70% of their calories from plants. We already have a plant-based diet. We don't need more plants, but we need better plants. Unfortunately, we're getting about 2/3 of those plant calories from processed grain products and not from vegetables and berries. So as we look at this, putting this together, what we're going to want to do is select out good carbs and bad carbs. Okay, so let's walk through creating a metabolic meal, a metabolic diet that really addresses muscle metabolism. First step at every meal, particularly breakfast, we need to think about this 30 grams of protein. And breakfast is most important. Most Americans eat less than 12 grams of protein at breakfast. So we start off the day in really bad shape. We're starting out basically in fat storage, our muscles are inactive, and we need to correct that. One of the things we've done at Kivana to make that possible is we developed the metabolic shake. This shake is a perfect blend of the ideal proteins, the ideal carbohydrates, the perfect kinds of hard carbohydrates, and the perfect kinds of fats to get your day up and running, to ignite this metabolism and muscle. And it's also totally convenient, totally portable. It makes the day easy. So we've got to get breakfast. If you're going to be successful with weight loss, you've got to get that first meal of the day correct. The second thing to keep in mind is all proteins aren't equal. So I talk about 30 grams. The quality of the protein really depends on individual amino acids in the protein. So protein is really just a food structure, and what we need are the individual parts of the protein, the amino acids that are in it. And one of the things to keep in mind, again, is all proteins aren't equal. So when we talk about 30 grams, if you start out with really high quality proteins like dairy and eggs, and our metabolic shake is predominantly made up of dairy and eggs, if you use those, you actually can get by with about 25 to 30 grams of protein total, and that will energize your muscle. However, if you want to be more vegetarian, if you'd like to do it with soy or pea protein, they are much poorer balance of amino acids in it, and will take you at least 35 grams of soy or pea protein to be equal. Good way of thinking about that is if you want to drink an 8-ounce glass of dairy milk, you have to drink 12 ounces of soy milk to be equal. They can kind of balance out, but you get a lot more calories when you do that. And then you go on into the grains. Everybody talks about quinoa or wheat. If you start your day with something like quinoa, now you have to get to 45 grams or more of protein before it's even useful. So you have to have more than twice as much. That means you would have to have 6 cups of quinoa at breakfast just to energize your muscle. And that'll give you over 1,000 calories just in quinoa, besides trying to choke down 6 cups. So those are the first 2 steps. And so again, we have developed the protein shake to be exactly the right balance with the minimum amount of calories, perfect for weight loss. Then the next thing we have to do is get the carbohydrates right. And again, we've done it in the shake, but the way you have to think about this is restricting the carbohydrates, and we want it less than 40 grams at every meal. And at breakfast, that first meal, we would like it to be even less than 30. If you look at the metabolic shake, I think it's around 20 to 22 grams of carbohydrates in it. And this basically means we're restricting the level of insulin at that meal. We're keeping insulin low. That maximizes your body's ability to store to burn stored fats. We call it increasing metabolic flexibility. So these are the steps we're going through. Think about the protein, get the right kinds of protein, keep the carbohydrates down. And then what we want people to understand is as they're creating that meal, they ought to be able to visualize it. Very few people are accountants and want to add up carbs or add up protein. And so what we've learned is we can teach people to look at what we call a plate look and visualize this relationship. And so we think that if people look at a plate sort of in 3 sections, a protein section, what we call our sort of high-risk carbs, these starchy, sugary carbs, and then a category we call smart carbs. And when we're balancing out this metabolic process, what we want is the protein section and this starchy, sugary carbs to sort of look equal in size. We want a 1-to-1 visual balance there. So whatever your protein is, whether it's fish or chicken or red meat or dairy products, whatever the size of that is, the amount of starch you have over there, whether it's rice or potatoes or pasta, breads, whatever it is, it can't be larger than the protein you're looking at. So that's kind of your first level of just kind of visualizing it. So we want those 2 parts, that protein and the starchy, sugary carbs, to be equal. Let's think about what those actually are. Starchy, sugary carbs. So these are the ones that are really high risk. These are the ones that frankly make you fat. Breads, cereals, rice, pasta, potatoes, chips, crackers, bananas, candy, desserts. A lot of the things you'd probably think about, but maybe some of the ones you wouldn't think about. And we really have to balance that. A lot of people get confused by the stories in the media, and they'll say, well, you really need to have brown rice, or you need to have whole grain bread, or something like that, or whole grain cereals. And those statements are all true, but you still have to limit the carbohydrates. Just because it's a brown rice, it's still a carbohydrate. And while the brown rice is better than the instant rice, it's still grams of carbohydrate. So a lot of people think, well, I had a whole grain bread, therefore I can eat whatever I want. That's not true at all. Those carbs in that brown rice are just as dangerous as they are in the white rice, and you have to control the amounts. So let's go on to the other category, and that's really what we call the good carbs or the smart carbs on the plate. These are the part of the plate where you can kind of really fill up on. These are high fiber foods, and you can really eat as much as you want. And we're talking about the colorful vegetables, so the green and yellow and orange and red vegetables that you would eat here, and lettuce, greens, the berries, and beans, legumes. Let me back up a minute and talk about beans and legumes. Beans and legumes, a lot of people think about beans and legumes and they immediately start thinking about protein. And it's true, there are pretty good sources of protein and certainly used by vegetarians, and people would maybe want to put them in the protein category. But what you have to remember is that when you eat your protein in beans and legumes, there's about 3 times as many grams of carbohydrates in the beans as there is protein. So if you're thinking of your beans or legumes in the protein section, then you've already wiped out the carbohydrate section, starch carbs. So those are perfectly good proteins, but you can no longer have any bread or rice or pasta to go with it. You've already covered that category. So I like to put the beans and legumes in the smart carbs, and then basically you can kind of eat them because of their fiber content. So again, where you think about them in the meal determines kind of how you want to use them. So that's sort of an overview of our diet. It sort of overviews how we put it together. Hopefully it helps you begin to understand. And I think what's really important in all of that is we've begun to put our metabolic process together in convenient things, ranging from the shake, which is a perfect meal balance that could be used for really any meal, but specifically designed for breakfast, but great for lunch too. And we also developed the metabolic bar, which is also a perfect balance of protein and carbohydrate, which we did both for a meal on the go or for an afternoon snack or even a nighttime snack. So basically we've created the balance in a couple of easy to carry, easy to use products. So that's sort of an overview of the diet and how we want to put it together, hopefully getting a sense of how to construct meals. So I hope you'll be able to join us and me specifically with our next session. And in that one, we're going to take another deeper dive actually in sort of the mechanism of how metabolic works. What's the science behind it? Why is it so different than anything else on the market? And really get into the nuts and bolts of what underpins it and makes it so special and so successful for weight loss. So thanks for joining me tonight.
Well, thank you, Dr. Layman. That was such a great overview, both of the scientific foundation and the practical application of how to make this work in everybody's life. I think you can start to get a sense that this isn't just another fad program. This isn't another, lose weight quick scheme. This isn't something that's going to come and go. This is some solid science endorsed by some of the top scientists in the world, brought to you through the Kivana vehicle. So Dr. Layman, again, we really appreciate that. And if you didn't catch part 1, I encourage you to go back and listen to it so that it really sets up nicely. This presentation fills in some of the gaps that you might have missed, and also will lead you into the last presentation where Dr. Layman again talks about the mechanisms and what makes metabolic so unique. Thank you, Dr. Layman. One thing that I'm so excited about here at Kivana is that we get to partner with people like Dr. Layman, the who's who in their respective category. We all want to find permanent solutions. We all want to find long-term fixes. We all want to look good, not just when we hit the diet hard, but we want to be able to maintain it for the rest of our life. And that's what we have here with the metabolic system. That's the goal here of the metabolic system. It's the world's only system that transforms your body permanently by correcting your metabolism. We're not starving away calories, as Dr. Layman said. We're not overly exercising ourselves skinny, but we're using our body's own mechanisms. We're activating those, as he so eloquently described, by feeding it the right food. What goes in your mouth does have a massive impact on what your body looks like and how well it works. And again, Dr. Layman was so eloquent in explaining to us the very mechanisms of how we put that into a practical application. So it's so deep on the science side, but so simple. Look at your plate, 3 grams of protein, match the starchy, sugary carbohydrate, the breads, the pastas, the bananas, those high sugar items or ones that convert to sugar right away in our system. So we've got a 1-to-1 balance, and then fill up on those leafy green vegetables. And that is just a really easy way to boil it down. And that's why people that we saw at the beginning of the presentation, the Deers and Alice Lee, and so many thousands of other people have not been able to just lose the weight, but also maintain it for the rest of your life. You know, Dr. Layman mentioned a couple of the products that we have. We have one of the best balanced shakes on the market. It's not a protein shake. It is a complete meal replacement. It has fiber in it. It has carbohydrates in it, but the right ones. It has fat in it, the right fat to help you burn fat. It's a perfectly structured meal. We have those both in chocolate and vanilla, and I promise you, you won't find anything better tasting on the market or that works better to keep you full, satisfied, and changing your body. We also have a bar that people like to use both with a low protein meal like a salad, or they like to use it as a snack. Delicious tasting chocolate peanut butter bar with the full benefits of 30 grams of protein, that magical number that we were talking about. And then we do have the Recharge product. That's a product that you take with a low protein meal, again, like a salad where you may not be able to, or a sushi where you may not be able to get a full 30 grams of protein. This is the balancer. This is the protein balancer. You just mix it in water and drink it with your meal. And you've activated those muscle tissues that we were talking about. You're burning fat. You're building new muscle. You're stabilizing your energy levels. You're stabilizing those carbohydrates. And so this is a complete system. The best thing is that we've got a 30-day money-back guarantee, totally risk-free. So I'd encourage you to get back to the person that talked to you, that shared this webinar with you. Ask them how you can become a preferred customer with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Becoming a preferred customer also saves you 20 to 30% off our already great retail prices. And so there's discounts that apply to you. And this is a short-term promotion that we're running right now. And that is if you take the metabolic products for 90 days, and not just metabolic, any Kivana product for 90 days, and share your success story with us. Tell us what happened. Tell us how it benefited you. Just in a 30-second, really, really easy, homegrown video. If you share that video with us and send it in, we'll give you $100 in free product. That's what we want to do. Give you $100 in free product at the end of 90 days. And so all kinds of ways for you to get healthy here at Kivana, all kinds of ways for you to start transforming your body using this metabolic system that we've talked about. We are excited to work with you. We're excited that you've joined us tonight. And again, we hope that you get back to the person that shared this webinar with you and that you tune in for all the other webinars we have coming. Thank you so much.